Hey everybody! Thanks for stopping by. It's a great film we talked about here. It'll be good to discuss it with you. Let's see. And now I'll play the intro. So, Doctor Strangelove. It was a fun viewing night. we
Mm.
uh, we watched that and then Surviving Edge Weapons afterwards. So good double feature we had there.
hmm And our serious review was very funny, and our funny review was very serious.
Yeah. What's especially funny about that is I might actually go back and add some more jokes in on that riff edit that we did, just because there was there's so many points of us just going, wait a second, this is just good advice. But as far as this one goes, I think I found a clip that's pretty good at describing the sense of humor here. Let me just play it quick.
I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
Uh,
Uh,
it's not a very subtle film, but it's a very good one.
it is. I'd say it's not subtle in the sense of like it's not trying to hide any of its, I don't know, intentions, but in terms of comedic effect, it is fairly subtle at times, I think. Or
Yeah, that's
I don't know
true.
if subtle is the right word. It's gut bustingly hilarious because it knows how to get the details of a joke right.
Yeah, exactly. There's good quality bits that are just in the background. Things never acknowledged, like character names and places. They're not, which aren't exactly subtle themselves, but they're very funny. And the best bit was improvised, by the way. The bit at the end that we're both busted out laughing at. The which
Oh,
we won't get
really?
to quite yet,
We'll get
but
there when we get there.
we'll get there when we get there. Um, oh, that reminds me, I did not paste in our little roundup for this thing. Oh, we generally talk about, just so we have that here.
Yeah.
Here, there we
All right.
go.
Well, initial thoughts then.
Initial thoughts, and we kind of were going over that already. It's great. I think it's up there for me with Princess Bride and Airplane as far as comedies go. I feel like I could rewatch this one and get more out of it, which is a
Um,
great sign for a comedy. It's very rare.
it's it's not quite as quotable as Princess Bride.
It's for good.
It's not
Yeah,
that far off.
the the one thing that we could quote, we probably shouldn't quote.
Several things that really. Um, but on the other hand, I'd compare it to like I put it up there with Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz is a good
Uh,
example too.
it's definitely I'll say that it's definitely a different kind of humor. So all these movies we listed, except for maybe Airplane. Airplane, I feel is like the closest in terms of
Yeah,
how the comedy operates. But even then, it's very different, right? Because I feel like Airplane is made up of a bunch of bits, and they're really good
true.
like visualizing the joke or pun almost into reality. Whereas here, it's not like that, but it has a lot of the similar style in terms of sort of I don't know
Yeah,
the dead maybe the deadpan but very extreme presentation, if that makes sense. Like it
yeah,
really hits you full force in the face.
yeah. It almost felt like a British comedy, actually. If I was thinking about it, the reason I specifically played the Garth Marenghi clip is a lot of it made me think of Garth Marenghi, that sense of humor from that show,
That's
from
true,
Dark
yeah.
Place, where it's very like on the nose and but also at the same time there's a lot of subtle jokes. And then they'll have a song. Didn't quite happen in this film, but um, a lot of that energy was there. Let's see. So I guess generally, as far as plot goes, not that that's that. I mean, it's important enough, but it's not super important, so to
I'd
speak.
almost say of all the I feel like the plot is actually very important to the comedy of this film, or to its structure as a film, than almost
Yeah.
any of the other ones we've listed here, apart from maybe because Hot Fuzz. Okay, Hot Fuzz, I think uh, is a beauty of construct. It's a Greek edifice of humor, but um, the way that the plot works in this one is very different to that. In that, I mean, there's just it provides a very driving force. It's very tight, um, and the fact that everything takes place in such a small time span, that kind of drags out to its 1.5 hour runtime,
Yeah.
really adds to, I'd say, the suspense of it. The one thing after another. There's not a wasted
It,
moment. It feels
it was
extremely
relentlessly
intense.
paced, I'd say.
And a lot of the cuts that were rather uncomedic really added to that sense of urgency, right? So, for example, when they're assaulting the Air Force Base, I remember noting that, as it's like, well, this is just, it looks like wartime footage, or just a plain old war movie, and it feels
Yeah.
like, especially juxtaposed with the funny situation, the horridness of everything going on really sinks in.
Yeah,
Um,
it was very straightforward footage. And then when it was juxtaposed against, say, the war room stuff, which is probably
yeah,
some of the funniest stuff in the film.
the war room almost, it's almost like a set of a play, and then you have the airplane. It's, or like the juxtaposition of the airplane model from outside, which looks like below the quality it should be, almost
Yeah,
hilariously so. And
we,
then on the inside, when it shows the frantic shot of them trying to repair damage, or like their heroic efforts to ruin the world, it's that juxtaposition that makes this so powerful.
they're trying so hard to make sure a nuke goes off.
It's funny, and it's terrible because of how seriously elements of it are presented, and would be if it occurred, in real life. It's like it's no laughing matter.
Yeah,
Nuclear
actually,
holocaust.
funny note here. They did actually change some policies in regards to this procedure in real life to make sure nothing like this ever happened.
Well, that's great.
So it's had some positive impacts already. Mm. But I don't know. I guess as far as the plot goes, if people haven't seen it, I will be going to spoilers in general, but an overview of it right now is just this rogue general wants war. um, for very funny reasons we find out later, I think. But he decides to send out a message via the procedure that's set up, and this plane goes out, or a bunch of planes go out, except for, and only one is able to be, is not recalled, right? I believe is what happens. But, and they're like, they're going to nuke Russia, who's apparently working on a doomsday machine that will destroy the world.
Let's see.
So
Was that Ripper
yes, yeah.
of the Burpelson Air Force Base?
Yes, Ripper of the Burpelson. Yeah, Burpelson. Even stupid jokes like that somehow land.
It lands because once again, it's that juxtaposition. It's like, it's so stupid, but it's so problematic. And I
Yeah,
guess, I mean, that's like the entire premise of the movie, right? Is that, nuclear war is stupid, but if it happens, we can't laugh at it.
yeah.
So what are you gonna do about it?
Exactly. Obviously, as far as moving on to characters and things, I guess the stand-up performance has to be Peter Sellers because he played three people.
Yeah, three of some of the funniest people too, huh?
Yeah, the best. I, I'm, I feel like I'm a little face blind. I almost didn't catch it in general. Um, but but yes,
I,
it's
I
a
guess that mustache was really effective.
it was. It tricked me. Never asked me to identify somebody at the scene of a crime because I'll get the wrong guy every time.
Maybe that's why the film is so funny, though.
Yeah,
You know.
it was a studio demand because apparently they thought that the only reason Kubrick's last film had succeeded is because Peter Sellers was playing three roles in that one as well.
And that so it's a running joke, is what you're telling me.
No, well, I don't know. It wasn't a joke in the first one, I think. If I if I remember the plot of that one correctly. Um, it's apparently a studio mandate in general, and he was furious about it. But he's like, "Well, what are you gonna do?
Maybe if I
Absurd."
can fool myself, here, put this mustache on,
It ended up working really
wear
well.
these dark glasses.
Peter Sellers is great in all three of the roles he's in. Obviously, Doctor Strangelove, the titular character, is probably his best performance in the movie.
I guess
It's
this is like between plot and characters, but it's really
yeah,
interesting to me how late in the movie he shows up. And I suppose that's kind of
yeah,
true of like a lot of these, I don't know, iconic characters who get sidelined, but somehow they're the face of the movie or the face of the idea. So here, is in the title of the movie. I'm also thinking of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
hmm.
How the show is stolen, so to
But yeah,
speak. In that one, who's the real main character?
true. Yeah, Tuco, always Tuco.
Right, it's always Tuco. I know, but I don't know. That's certainly one of the things that keeps watching these sort of classic movies fresh is if you haven't seen it at all, you really can't predict the actual dynamics of the movie. Um,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
this is one I was surprised I hadn't watched before. It's really up my alley. You heard me quite a few times during the movie burst out laughing, even at things I don't think you found funny necessarily.
oh, really not. Yeah, name one.
I can't
You can't.
off the top
Yeah,
of my
there you
head.
go.
True.
Nah, I just meant to. Um, no, it's funny.
You're a more subdued person than I am.
Yeah, sure. Um, right. So I guess we should go through the rest of the characters then, or should we finish with the plot? Right. So plot analysis. Plot analysis. So it's got this sort of rising action. Um, that really goes by in a blur if you think about it, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want you to put the base on high alert. Wait, I guess let's see, it's Turgidson. Is it Turgidson that
He's the yeah.
asked him to run a drill, and then Ripper turns in, uses that as an opportunity to proclaim first strike.
Yeah.
Through basically mechanical. That sort of theme of mechanical failure runs through the film as well, because not only is this issue in the contingent, so the plan itself, which is not possible of correction from outside, the reason the whole situation emerges, but then that specific plane that we follow can't be stopped because of a mechanical failure in the radio. And then finally, that leads to the annihilation of the Earth through the Doomsday device, because the Doomsday device is also mechanically unable to be, fixed from the outside. And so there's this sort of, and then finally, I suppose, Dr. Strangelove's, Hail Hitler hand cannot help itself because of its mechanical nature.
Yeah.
And so
Gosh darn it, it's all the funniest thing.
I know. So, isn't it just the darndest thing how these inhuman mechanical systems made by man for the sake of war decide, once set on their paths, cannot be recalled. Kind of like nuclear proliferation, huh? So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So that's like a running theme, and I guess like the way the plot works is it sort of escalates that, in precisely that order, where it becomes more and more mechanical and more disastrous, or I guess disastrously funny in the case of Dr. Strangelove's hand.
Yeah.
But it also, it's like a very strident criticism. I guess it's still themes, but the sort of criticism of this trust in the machine.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's impossible to talk about the plot without talking about the themes.
That's
You're
true.
saying.
Especially the bit at the end there. There's another juxtaposition here between, like, there's this intense mechanical sort of evil that you can fall into. On the other hand, the flaws of man are weirdly sexual.
Every time.
You know, you have Ripper who's going on about essential fluids and or denying them to women. And you have
commies.
Turgidson, you know, and commies, and you have Turgidson, who's shown, you know, in a dalliance, shall we say, where fortunately we didn't have to censor anything, but the implication is clear. And then you have the bit at the end where Doctor, you know, they're talking about locking themselves in a bunker, right? So and sort of this mechanical, you know, scientific worldview kind of thing. It's like, yeah, you know, it would be a simple matter to, you know, repopulate the earth by confining a small population in our deepest mines. You know, it's just 100 years. We could totally do it. The bit that wins everyone over is the idea of having like 10 women to every man. And so, you know, on I guess like on the one hand, you know, the problem is the creation of uncorrectable mechanical things. On the other hand, there's this dual lust of lust for war and lust for, you know, sex that allows the people in power to sort of be won over to these things or allow them to occur. And
I mean,
and
the
meanwhile,
that entire last sequence of the film is just the best summary of everything that's come before, and also the funniest thing in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Which is saying a lot because there are a lot of great moments. Let's see. Peter Sellers' performance as the British military officer is also great.
As Mandrake.
Specifically when he's trying to talk to Ripper about, hey, maybe we should stop this, right? Ripper's going on about essential fluids, and he's just going, yes. Exactly.
Anyone who's had the distinct displeasure of trying to reason with a madman,
like you with me,
like me with you, can relate almost to an uncomfortable degree with Mandrake there.
Yeah, we've both been on
public
transit.
Yeah. Look, you're not the worst example, but
I'm a good one.
Yeah. I was gonna say you can be reasoned with, but maybe I'll take that one back now. But no, for real though, I've talked to people, and
yeah,
like it's painfully real. It's painfully real, and yet you have to laugh at it. You have to laugh at it.
The punchline is when Ripper goes and kills himself.
No. The punchline is he kills himself, and then he's slumped against the door, and you have trouble getting the door open. That's the real punch.
Bit of
It's so morbidly realistic, and yet it's hilarious.
It's subtle. That's subtle, but funny. Like really, really funny.
I thought there's a line, I forget who says it, something like, you know, humor's ability to see the world as a tragedy and yet or as a comedy and yet continue to see it as a tragedy, or something like that. I forget the exact specifics, but it's very much this film.
Yeah,
it's the more tragic, the more disastrous everything gets, the funnier the humor becomes. Once again, through that juxtaposition of something, you know, uncannily real with what's impossibly stupid.
Yeah, exactly. I actually really like the end montage a lot too, because it really encapsulates that. Encapsulates it with
this have got to be
again playing over nuke footage.
That has to be right actual footage of test bombs. So go ahead.
As somebody who's a fan of the game series Fallout, it's kind of absurd just how much I think they've built their entire style off of that one montage.
Yeah, and really the plot, right? Because
the plot too.
You know, it's like, what are the vaults except all these giant, all these facilities underground to keep people for 100 years? You know.
Yeah, even the comedic edge to it, I'd say.
This is funnier though.
It's great. I'm happy about it though. Let's see.
Oh,
Favorite scenes. We've kind of touched that a little bit, but what it's hard to really narrow it down because it goes on for so long. But
well,
I
it's more like it just
obviously the
never
war room stuff.
stops. The war
Yeah,
room stuff is pretty good. Especially Doctor
don't
Strange.
fight in the war room.
uh, yeah, I think any moment with Strangelove is a good moment.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
let's see. Yeah, a lot of the Mandrake stuff is good. So I guess he's carrying the movie on his back,
Yeah.
to a certain degree. But I really like the serious moments. If you couldn't tell, or like the
Yeah.
bomb footage reminded me a lot of the bomb footage from Sorcerer.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, I mentioned that. I really like the bits within the airplane.
Oh yeah,
Right,
true.
on the one hand, there's just the sheer delight of watching these analog computers and other systems that they're fiddling around with. Just looks real cool. But
They're actually trying really hard.
yeah,
Yeah. And as
the
funny as it is with the context.
right. I mean, but that's what creates the contrast. It makes it work so well and so hilarious. Is uh, because if you took away the sort of absurdity of the situation, or if you took out the silly visuals from the outside of the plane, inside the plane, it looks deadly serious,
Yeah.
and would be in any other context just a total thriller of a serious film.
And the Texan, of course, is a great inclusion for that.
Yeah,
Kong. With the most iconic movie moment in the film, of course,
yeah,
with him riding on the bomb.
yeah, and I mean the actor's name, he's Slim Pickens, right? Um,
Yeah.
there's a song by The Offspring called "Slim Pickens Does the Right Thing and Rides the Bomb to Hell."
Oh, I don't actually haven't
Uh,
heard that, but that's pretty good.
I really like that one, but that I immediately thought of that when you said. I was like, oh, so that's what they're talking about. What? But like that serious scene, I really like the machine gun scene. They're
Yeah.
assaulting the
Yeah.
base. I already mentioned that. It just because it's so dark and serious, right? It feels it has that sort of authenticity to it, where I sort of assumed that they were just actually shooting guns, no prop.
Yeah. And you're right. Like you said, that whole sequence felt like a real war movie for parts of
Yeah,
it.
I mean,
Um,
uncomfortably. Once again, uncomfortably real. It's not.
yeah. This
It's not supposed to
and it
be
went on
feel
for so
good.
long. It felt like in the context of the film, with how relentlessly paced it was,
Hmm.
it felt like that sequence went on for a long time.
And, and I suppose like that's how it would feel to be assaulted or to mount an assault.
Yeah,
You know,
it works, which is why it's so funny at the end of the day.
and so
It doesn't take it's this great aspect of films from the era where it's all very methodical and clinical, so to speak, in the way the production is done. It's very workmanly, I'd say, which adds to the it's sort of a dryness to it. Because
mhm.
people, that's why what I mean when I say it reminds me of a British comedy a little bit. It has that same sort of dryness to it.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
There certainly wasn't anything. I don't recall that much, uh, so to speak, fancy stuff with like shot composition and the cuts, if that makes sense. Like, so if I'm thinking of like Sorcerer, which also does that realism really well,
yeah,
mostly because they did drive that truck over a rickety bridge, so on and so forth. Real lives were imperiled in the making of this film. But
yeah,
apart from that, right? Something about that film was that it was very, I kept saying it's vignettes. They've got these little bits that are intensely composed and intensely packed with emotion. Here, it wasn't like bad or anything, and there's some iconic shots, obviously, but it definitely didn't feel like that's what he was going for. It felt more like, like an instructional war film or something like that. And
yeah. In a lot of it, definitely. Although I will say stuff like the war room set is obviously a little fantastical. I'd imagine. I
yeah,
don't think that's probably what it looks like. And of course, We kept talking about the compositing of the airplane as well.
Yeah,
It kept standing out every time we saw it. It just didn't look as good as
it's.
the rest, and we're
I
not
think
sure.
I think it was just done. I mean, obviously, it would be too expensive and perhaps impossible to actually buy airtime with that plane.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, it was definitely, the fakeness of it was milked for effect, which is what you should do, right? If you have
yeah,
something fake, you should milk that for effect. And yeah,
it's yeah. I guess we could go on if we're talking about this. We can go on to our next thing, which would be the musical score, because we're talking about production a bit in what we're talking about right now. And we kind of combine that in a section. The musical score, obviously, the end song is the most important part of that. We'll meet again.
mm-hmm.
Um, I have to say, I don't really remember much about the music of this film.
Likewise.
Yeah, so which means either it was uninteresting or it served exactly the purpose it was supposed to and didn't get in the way of the actual film itself. Which
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably tending towards the latter. Um,
I think it's hard to have a musical score if you're delivering a lot of humor,
yeah, that's
and
true.
it's
You had to
or
pace it out, I think,
yeah,
during the
or
score.
rather, right? Because obviously you can have a funny song, juxtaposed with purely visual humor, which is what the end is. But um, you couldn't have that in the middle. You can have like a long sequence in the middle of the movie where that happened. I think once
Yeah,
again because of sort of the pacing of it, right? It's very relentless, and
yeah,
these lulls tend to build the tension rather than let it down, precisely because it introduces something awfully serious or possibly a bit self-serious, with like what the air, the silly model airplane, and sort of how the dynamic of the crew is sort of early on, where they're heroic but sort of mock heroic, like they're
yeah.
so plastic, they're so obvious, it's almost like plastic. They're like action figures at the start, and
True.
then
A
that
lot of
sort of melts
caricatures.
away when the plane's on fire. For a second, you're like, oh gosh, this would be perilous.
Yeah, we were talking about the claustrophobia
Yeah, it was
of the
brutal.
sequences there. It's like so close, and the way that it was shot, it felt it felt very real, which is great for this. It really sold it.
I,
Because this is obviously an anti-war film. I mean, inherently, there's no way you can look at it at anything else. I think, but in a good way, right? Because it gets its message across while not sacrificing the quality of the overall film itself.
yeah,
Um, it has a relatively plausible scenario, at least at the time, um, and that aspect of the production really stands out. Hmm. As far as the rest of this goes, is there anything else you want to talk about?
oh, there is one thing.
Yeah.
The Russian president.
Oh, oh, you talking about the ambassador and then the Russian president over the phone?
Yeah, I thought that was really. Now that you think about it, that's hilarious. The fact that you never see the president, right? The Russian president, he's just a figure on the phone, and everything. The very serious American president. What was his name again? Um, Remind me.
Oh, sorry, which one?
The American
Uh,
president.
the American president is what was his name? Oh man, we had the list right here. Oh, Merkin,
Yeah, Merc.
Merkin Muffley, right?
Oh, Muffley. Okay, yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
played by Sellers. That's why I couldn't
yeah,
find it. Yeah, like he goes from being sort of the straight man into the room into this guy who's just babying his friend over the phone, like talking to a drunk, and
yeah.
and so he's basically playing four characters, really.
It's true. And then
uh,
he's the kind of the straight man that a lot of that stuff gets played against. He's like, I'm not going to be the next Hitler. Like, and then by the end of it, he technically would have been thought of it that way because of the nukes. Talking, which is especially funny with the Doctor Strangelove stuff at the end with the the arm he can't control.
yeah,
Which I will not do on camera because I don't need that out on the internet.
yeah.
uh, but it's a reference to Doctor Strangelove if it happened. Okay.
It's yeah. So yeah, that's just like another one of those really well done bits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Not much
just
else.
we could keep talking about the movie in general, but we'd be just talking about jokes and explaining them poorly. I think.
Yeah, let's not. I mean, I think we've said enough about the jokes.
Yeah.
Or should I say the humor of it. There's
Yeah.
not.
It'll.
It's not like even the funny names are not so much puns. It's just like
Haha, this sounds funny.
throwing something stupid in your face in the middle of a serious situation.
Yeah, it's the contrast.
It's a contrast. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we don't want to talk about more of the jokes. That kind of wraps up most of the discussion. I recommend it. I think it'll be difficult for me to watch a movie on the show that I don't recommend, just because I keep purposely picking good ones. But
That's I beg him to do so. I don't want to
Yeah.
watch bad movies.
yeah, someday we'll watch Remzar and critique it as a serious film.
No.
But
Yeah.
I assume you'd probably recommend it too.
Absolutely. I think it's well, maybe not a film for all ages, but it's a film
No.
for all times. Let's say that.
Yeah, it's weirdly relevant now.
I don't know. It's got as much as it's targeted at a particular time and place in a particular issue. It's not, it's certainly not written in a way that the humor fades or that the basic ideas lose relevance.
Yeah.
Losing.
There'll always be war, and it'll always be for some reason that doesn't make a whole lot of sense at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Roughly.
I think was it Ripper or Turgidson that says like war is too important to be left to
politicians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's Turgidson.
That's Turgidson. Okay, that's what I thought. And I feel like putting rather than having a character state the obvious, having a character state the opposite of the truth is to say something stupid, basically. Stupid character say something stupid. Works really well in I guess like producing a message, if you will.
I think that's about it for me on this film. It's a little shorter than some of our discussions have been, but I think that's going to be the way of it with comedies, because it's hard to break down something without ruining it with a comedy, I think.
Yeah.
The jokes, it would just be us reciting jokes again, with less professional delivery. So we recommend it. It's great. Let's see, what else is coming up. We've got next Saturday will be the continuation, possibly the final bit of our Dark Souls playthrough. We've been doing really great at that.
Yeah,
mostly. Well, this last session redeemed us. And then next weekend, barring any unforeseen circumstances, I'll be having Tyrone Deese on to talk about the Soviet film Stalker. So that'll be great. You might know him from a video that's gone viral recently, which is Steamed Hams, but as a German expressionist film. So that's good. It was a very well done parody with actual actors in a set. So I'd fully recommend that. Otherwise, I think that's things we moving forward normally enough, and we'll decide what Sleepy and I are going to watch next. I know it's Oscar season. There've been a few films that have been nominated for it, so maybe we'll try to catch one of those that's actually worth watching. Who knows?
Ooh.
Yeah. But yeah. Anything else you want to say?
Anything else?
No.
Don't let them get your fluids. Keep your fluids pure.
Yep, keep your fluids pure. All right, everybody. Stay copacetic. We'll see you next time.